Let's go.
Wednesday afternoon.
And then I'm sure not intentionally, but what manager, whoever they are, what manager wouldn't be a bit in awe of Sir Alex Ferguson?
Right.
And therefore, it will make life much tougher to try and begin to make Man United what they used to be under his tenure, so to speak. So, yeah, I think the manager plays an important part. I thought this might happen to Liverpool when Klopp went, who was, again, a very personable guy. He was emotional, for good and bad. He would sometimes run and face up to a ref or an assistant ref, and sometimes got booked for the privilege of doing so. But he wore it on his sleeve again, which I like. I like managers who do that, because they do often tend to be successful, because their players see them as someone they can relate to, who they know will look after them, will protect them, will defend them. They won't criticise them overly or at all in public, stuff like that. So I did think when he went, because he was like a father figure, I'm sure, to the team, to the squad, I wondered, will some of the other players want to go because the spirit won't be there, and so on. But you have to say, Slot, I think his name is now settled in. He's having an impact. I mean, they're way ahead in the table, as we've said. And I get the feeling his players respect him. We hear one or two whispers. I mean, is Salah... I saw he was a bit disappointed with not being offered a contract or the one he wanted. And I think you've touched on that before, that maybe he won't survive in that team. Now, I find it hard to believe the manager, Slot, wouldn't rate Salah, because he is scoring goals. He got 2 last weekend, I think. He's a great player and still a world-class footballer. So I don't really understand what may be going on there. But as in other parts of life, you get personality clashes, and maybe any manager will sometimes not hit it off with a player or players. So maybe it's something to do with that. But generally, I think Liverpool have kind of stuck together. I can't remember anyone who's left, say, since Klopp went. I mean, maybe there were one or two, but I can't remember anybody who's gone. And they've kept their team together, and it's paying off. They're doing very, very well. So yeah, it's the debate: who is most responsible for a team's performance? Ultimately, it's a mixture of both, of all the staff, the coaches, the head coach or the manager, and the players getting on with each other, all pulling in the same way, and that perfect storm of good things can create a perfect team. But yeah, I don't think you can blame the manager for leaving Sporting Lisbon and blaming their defeat on him, because players are professional, and if they mourned his loss, they still got to earn their money. They still got to play the game. So I don't know. These odd results happen sometimes, don't they?
It does. Yeah. I was just thinking about the margin. 5 goals, and they were only able to score 1. I was just thinking about the margin. I mean, all right, so these odd results happen, but funny enough, what you said, it does hold true, actually, because when big teams lose, they lose by big margins. And this season, Real Madrid lost to Barcelona 4 goals. Man City lost to Sporting Lisbon by 4 goals. So it's always the big teams lose by big match. So yeah, you might be right there. So I think it was last week when we talked about Ruben Amorim, Manchester United, and we talked about how, sort of just talking about how successful we think he might be or might not be at Manchester United. And his first game, just before I go into what I think about his first game, what do you think about his first game against Ipswich Town?
Yeah, I mean, I thought Man U played well. I didn't think... Ipswich, it was a draw, wasn't it, at the end of it?
It was a draw, yes.
It was a draw, yeah.
1-1. 1-0, yeah.
Yeah, I did watch it, and I didn't think Man United played badly. I thought, again, it's the little ones against the big ones, the big team. So Ipswich sort of raised their game. I think that's always been a perennial problem, if that's the word, for Man United and Man City, that every other team sees the game with them as a cup final. So of course players thrive.
Saw Femi and the ladies, Dr. Gladys and Phantom and Rose. We all have a lovely show every weekday. So join us for a lovely show.
Say hello to Phantom, Dr.
Against the big ones, the big team. So Ipswich sort of raised their game. I think that's always been a perennial problem, if that's the word, for Man United and Man City, that every other team sees the game with them as a cup final. So of course players thrive on the excitement of that and the adrenaline that comes with it, and the belief that you can get something out of the game. And of course Man United haven't had the greatest season by any means. Perhaps they've picked up a bit lately, but so Ipswich I think did well to get their point. And I don't think you can really attribute much of that game or performance to Amirin at all, because he's literally just started. He's sort of sounding out the players and the team and looking at things as a manager has to do. It'll take him a few weeks to get his feet under the desk, so to speak, and then perhaps after a month or so you can start to judge his performances through the team. But yeah, I don't think he could in any way be accountable for better or worse. You'd think on a first game where someone's in charge, a new manager, the team might, want to impress, and I think that's what usually happens. So all credit to Ipswich, frankly, for overcoming that desire, no doubt, on the part of the Man United players to perform well for their boss. But as often said, in the Premier League these days, there's very few, if any, easy games. I mean, it's a tough league, probably the most competitive league in the world, which is why it's beamed around the world every Saturday and Sunday. I mean, it is probably the most watched sport in the world, with billions of people looking at it. So it's an excellent product. And as you know, I go to Palace to the home games and some away games, a few away games. And every week when we're at home, you see the huge, great trucks with the satellite equipment. And I was reading a thing the other day by someone who did a sort of a commentary at the end of the game. I don't think he was one of the players, but he was very close to them. And how they finished, they warmed down, they run to warm down rather than warm up. And the stadium gets quiet and empty, and you think, half an hour ago it was a buzz with all the noise and cheering and whatever from the fans, and that atmosphere suddenly isn't there. And then he said that he then saw just outside the gates of the ground these huge, great trucks, these great lorries carrying massive, basically radar equipment, all of the satellite stuff away, and it's a massive operation at every ground every week. And I think we tend, why would we think about that? I just noticed the huge trucks, 3 or 4 of them every time I go there before a game, but we don't tend to think of the great technical marvel that it all is. I don't know, I'm going off at a bit of a tangent, but I'm always impressed is probably doesn't really do it, but when there's a thing the cameras want to focus in on, they can focus in on that bad tackle or whatever from about 3, 4, 5 different cameras, and they get almost into the players' legs. I mean, it's phenomenal, the skill with which these producers on these television matches, all sports I expect, but with football, the analysis and the ability to zoom in to where the piece of action they want to analyse, it's fantastic. And the technology around the Premier League, and of course all sports these days, is phenomenal. And I think it's nice that we should appreciate that, really. And it should make the VAR ref and his assistants make their job easier, and it must do because of the brilliant camera angles. But I mean, that's
Femi and the ladies, Dr. Gladys and Phantom and Rose. We all have a lovely show every weekday, so join us.